All right, so here we have a code for a file that is implementing a controller, right? And if you remember, the role of a controller is to serve as an interface between two worlds, right? The HTTP world and the JavaScript world, right? Or the HTTP world and the Java world, and basically do the translation between those two worlds. Now, the HTTP world is a world of streams, right? Of data being serialized and deserialized, that you have headers and cookies and data being embedded inside of a body and files being attached. So it's its own world, right? And the controller's responsibility is to interface with that world, right, and convert all that stream world into an object world, right, which in this case is the JavaScript world, right, which is made up of arrays and objects and functions, right, and whatnot. And in Java, it would have been, the classes and object instances and whatnot. Yes. So that should be the only role of the controller to interface between the two. Now, our controller here is actually doing a little more than that, right? It's not only listening to these incoming requests, this gets, the posts, the puts, and the deletes, and whatnot, and parsing parameters. It's also, notice, it's giving access to some data, right? Data lives here. It's kind of like a little data source, and it's exposing that data to the rest of the world. So it's going beyond its responsibilities. The responsibility of actually manipulating the data, retrieving data, manipulating data, changing data, and whatnot, that's really the responsibility of a service, right? Of interacting with the data source. So let's break this up, right, into their constituent parts, right, so that we have, we fully implement the division of concerns, right? All right, so let's implement a service in a separate directory, and we'll call that the directory, call it services. Right, so anything that has to do with accessing and manipulating data, we're going to put it in here, right? So we're going to create one here for JavaScript. We'll call it quizzes services, right? .server.js, right? And in here, we're going to move the array. We're going to cut it from here, and we're going to paste it in here. And we're going to provide an API, right, that is going to allow us to manipulate this data structure. Excuse me. So we're going to have this data source here, and we're going to manipulate it by providing an API, right? So for instance, we would like to do a couple of things, right, that are listed here, right? We want to be able to retrieve all the quizzes. We would like to be able to retrieve a particular quiz if you pass me the quiz ID. So let's implement that. So in here we're going to have a couple of functions. One might be called, find all quizzes, right? And if we call it, it's just going to return all the quizzes, right? Whereas if we have find quiz by ID, right? We can receive here the quiz ID, right? And then filter or find that particular quiz. But we have that code already. Don't we have that? There it is. It's this one. Find, right? I'm just going to copy it. I'm just going to copy it right here. I'm going to copy. And I'm just going to paste it right here. There we go. It's going to take the quizzes. It's going to do a find on them. Right? And then it's going to iterate over all the quizzes. And when it matches the quiz that we passed in as an argument, as a parameter, right, it's going to return that one quiz. Yes? All right, so now we need to make this available so that folks can import it, right, or require it from other files, right, and then be able to invoke these functions. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use module.exports, right? Remember, module.export is how you make anything that you assign to the exports variable, right? It's made available to anyone who requires it. So the way we're going to export it is by exporting this map. We're going to export a map that's going to have as name and as value, right, the key value pairs, these properties and these values, right, like that. Okay. Once we export it, we can go back to the controller, right, and start using it, right? We can import the our service. We can say const, and this is the quizzes service. We can require, right? Now, where is it that it lives? So we're down in the controllers, right? We need to go into the service. So to do that, we can use a relative navigation. We can say dot dot go up one and then down to the services and then down to the quizzes service. Now we have the quizzes service, and so we can replace this here with the quizzes services. So we can say the quizzes services. This is the find all quizzes, whereas this one over here, right? This is going to fetch that one quiz based on the quiz ID. So we're going to say go into the service and then find the quiz by ID, and I'm going to pass you the ID. I'm going to parse it from the param. So this is request dot params dot and then dash bracket quiz ID. Okay. All right, there we have it. So let's try it out. Let's restart the server. Let's restart and go back here, right? And let's retry it. There it is. We have, oops, what do we have here? We have all the quizzes, right? And the one quiz. It looks like we are returning the same quiz. Let me see. If we go back to find the service, the find quiz by ID does quizzes, quizzes.find, quiz ID. What I do here? Find all quizzes. Did I misspell it in the service? Oh, we did find all quizzes again. Yeah, so this is find quiz by ID. There we go. All right, I hate computers. They're always right. Let's try it again. All right, let's go back. And if we here, there we go. Now we're getting that one quiz by the ID that we passed in there. One extra thing is that in the map, right? Notice that we're being a little bit too verbose here because we're using ES6, right? We can abbreviate this, right? By removing the just keeping the property name, right? If it's the same as the value, right? We can abbreviate it, and that's just a little more terse, a little more easier to write and read.